Hey everybody, it's Golmax, and welcome back to the Aetherdrift Early Access event. Thank you very much to Wizards of the Coast for providing me with this early access promotional account. And without further ado, let's just get into another premiere draft of the brand new format, see what's going on in the set. We've got a really cool, really fun mythic rare here, the March of the World Ooze. So ideally we want to be in a very, very heavy green deck, because this is triple green and 3, a very restrictive mana cost. But for that entry fee, you get a enchantment that gives your whole board base power and toughness 6/6. And whenever an opponent casts a spell, if they cast a spell during your turn, you get a 3/3 elephant, which, as long as March of the World Ooze is on the board, is going to be another 6/6 ooze. So basically, if you just have a really creature-heavy deck and you curve into this, this is going to be like an overrun potential win condition the turn you drop this out. I mean, you go, 2 mana 2/2, 3 mana 3/3, 4 mana 4/4. Even if you miss like one of those cards, slam this down and upgrade them all to 6/6 stats. That seems like a really nice way to try to end the game. So we're going to take the March of the World Ooze there. Maybe play a green deck this time around. For pick 2, we've got multiple options of where to go with our green deck. We have the Stampeding Scurryfoot, a solid little common here. Once you have the 4 mana to exhaust it, you get a 2/2 and a 3/3 for basically 5 mana invested total, which is a pretty great deal. I feel like the Scurryfoot is going to be a very solid card in the format. There's also Beast Rider, though, which could definitely get us speculating in another direction, because this card's absurd. 3 mana for a 3/4, very, very sturdy card for the mana cost, and it untaps all of your creatures at the beginning of your end steps. You can do any amount of crewing and saddling and mounting and all that nonsense, and then just untap everybody right back up. Plus, it has an activated ability. You can always threaten to buff your board and win combat with that 4 mana ability. Really absurd card. And another great one is Greenbelt Guardian. 2 mana 2/2, and it has its own exhaust ability for 4 mana. You just put 3+1/+1 counters on it. So really, really nice cards there to choose from. But I like the Beast Rider a lot. I've been getting destroyed by this card pretty consistently. Pick 3, we have Elvish Refueler. 3 mana 2/3. And you can activate your exhaust abilities as though they haven't been activated. So exhaust abilities are just abilities you can only use one time per game. That seems like a pretty strong card, being able to do those multiple times. But there's also a Debris Beetle. There's also just a big old drain your opponent for 3 life, 6/6 trampling vehicle. You have to crew 2 instead of just crew 1, but that's still massive. So I'm going to speculate on the Debris Beetle here, and we'll see which direction we end up going between Selesnya and Golgari here, green-white or green-black. Pick 4. What is the Beast Rider Vanguard? 2 mana 2/2 for 5 mana. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, reveal a permanence, put it into your hand, put the rest on bottom. That's a solid mana sink. If you have cards that care about getting to maximum speed, Leonin Surveyor is great. It starts your engines early, so you start at 1 engines, and then you get to start pinging your opponent to work that way up to max speed. You raise your speed once each turn that you damage your opponent. So the earlier you start working on that, the earlier you start your engines, the more consistently you're going to be able to make your max speed cards better. There's a Molt Tender here for graveyard synergy and some mana fixing. That looks pretty good, and there's a decent black removal spell here. I think I'm just going to take the best green card in the pack, again, because we're so much heavier into green with our triple green card and both of our multicolored cards being in the color. But I wouldn't mind like that removal spell there. Pick 5, we have Earth Rumbler. 5 mana, 7/6 Vigilance Trample. You can exile an artifact or creature from your grave to make it an artifact creature till end of turn. So if you're good at self-milling, this is just the 5 mana, 7/6 Vigilance Trample. As long as you keep the fuel in your graveyard to exile, which seems pretty nasty. I don't mind going for that here. Again, sticking deep into green as a color. Pick 6. There's a Night Market here. That's flexible mana fixing that you can cycle in the late game when you're flooded out. Hazard of the Dunes seems pretty nice, though. 4 mana, 4/4 trample reach. Has the base stats up front. If the game goes really long, you get to make it a 7/7, which is nasty. The Archfiend is pretty spooky. It can board wipe all of the smaller creatures. It's also a big creature with cycling, so if you have any reanimation spells, it could play well with those. So I like that idea in a green-black self-mill sort of deck. That could be pretty fun. Yeah, multiple options here. I'm going to go for the Archfiend, though. See if we can't push our way into green-black. Another Stampeding Scurryfoot. I think this will play really well with the March of the World tree, because it gives us 2 creatures off of the 1 card, plus +1/+1 counters work really well with this card, because it cares about the base power and toughness, not the actual power and toughness, so it's going to be like a 7/7 if it's got a +1/+1 counter on it, and we play the March, so I like the Scurryfoot here. We're also, again, way deeper into green than any other color, so taking the good green card is taking something that's very likely to make the cut. There's Broken Wings for a sideboard kind of card. There's just the 2-mana 3/2 on curve to keep trying to curve out into March of the World Ooze, or there's a second Archfiend. Second Archfiend for consistency feels good. If we get to do that kind of shenanigans, or those kind of shenanigans. Here's Silken Strength for random green combat check. Ooh. Once again, I think Scurryfoot is a lot better than it looks. It looks like just some random 1-mana 1/1, but I mean, 5 mana, 3/3 plus 2/2. It's a good deal. Pick 11. Whenever one or more artifact creatures leave your graveyard, gain 1. When it enters mill 4, put an artifact creature land from among them into your hand. Okay. That's so much better than I thought it was. Okay. I just saw some random enchantment that cares about graveyard stuff, and I was like, that's got to be like way, way, way too slow. But the fact that its Enter's ability immediately draws you a card means it's like one of those 2-mana mill 4 draw card cards with added upside. So it's actually pretty nice. That could be pretty good here for Golgari self-mill if we get to fully go in that direction. Well, I don't think there's a lot of dinosaurs in this set, but I wouldn't mind a 3-mana 5/4. Regal Imperiosaur seems kind of nasty. I really wouldn't mind that at all. We're so deep into green that this also, again, leaves us open to any other secondary color. We're still not married to black yet, and that's the closest we are. We're really not glued to our white. I'd take Regal Imperiosaur. That seems awesome. Pick 2. There's a green removal spell. We probably need to take that very highly. We're low on removal, and we're definitely playing green. So I like that. Although the back on track is black's graveyard recursion spell. It's reanimation spell to pick up like an Archfiend early in the game. So that would be a fun combo if we can get there, but we can definitely just play a green deck here. Silken Strength is more than filler enough to speculate in a different direction, and I think we just take the good black removal spell, seeing as we already have a few good black cards. Pick 4. Okay, I don't like the Velo Heart Bike very much. So I think here I can speculate again, this time back towards white, getting past another white rare to go with our Veteran Beast Rider. It's also really nice with our green rare, right? Like our green rare is making all of our creatures 6/6s, so the wider our board is, the better. So any kind of cards that can spit out multiple creatures off of one card are going to be good, and that's exactly what Basri's doing here, spitting out a bunch of cat tokens. So dancing between green-black and green-white here. Pick number 5. Another Scurryfoot here is definitely good, but we can also go deeper into Golgari with the Thundering Broodwagon. This would make me really want that Graveyard Reanimation spell, because this is super nasty. It's a bunch of mana to play it, but blows up one of your opponent's non-land permanents with mana value 4 or less, and leaves behind a 6/5 Menace Reach. You do have to crew it for 3, which is quite a hefty crew cost, but that's a really, really nice one if we get to be the Golgari Reanimator deck. We would have to be the only person in the draft pod trying to do reanimation stuff, because at this point we're trying to wheel that card like pick 10 or pick 11, so everyone will have seen it by now. Every single player in the draft pod, if anybody else is interested in it, they get to take it before we do, since we passed up on it the first time for more green spells. Alright, pick 6. No green spells this time around. We could take Camera Launcher, which is kind of filler, but I mean, you get a 3/3 and a 1/1 flyer. 6 mana invested total is a lot. I guess the black combat trick is probably worth it, even if it doesn't make the cut. If we end up cutting black, it's still way better, I think, than the launcher. Here we can just take Jungle Hollow pretty easily. Fix the mana, because we've got triple green and double black cards in the same deck, most likely. Pick 8 looks bad. I don't really want any of this. We'll take a tortoise. Pick 9. What does this thing do? Search your library and or graveyard for a creature with no abilities reveal it put into your hand. So you can search for your graveyard as well. We don't have any right now, as far as I know, but that's really powerful if we get some. I'll speculate on it. Like, I've got a 3-mana 5/4 that I'm basically running it as if it has no abilities, but technically it does have abilities, so it doesn't count. Dang, there was a tune-up there. There was the white reanimation spell, but not the black one. That's tragic. I guess maybe I can... This sounds like a bad idea. In a deck with triple green cards and double black, double green, this is a horrible idea, but technically I could splash tune-up. Try to cycle a Brood Wagon and then get it off tune-up. Yeah, that's a bad idea. Let's just go pure Golgari here. Our mana costs are really restrictive. Okay, we are on to the final pack. What have we got here? Nothing much for our deck. We've got the gigantic 6-mana 5/5 that comes with a 3/3. Okay, no, that card's great. I'll take that. Or we have the 2-mana 2/1 Death Touch that can saddle up for more. Pax of Altair is also nice. If you care about reaching max speed, this is a way to damage your opponent without having to get an attack through. And if you care about artifacts and you have a lot of artifacts, it's also a way to drain a bunch of life from your opponent. So I feel like this card is a little better than it looks. But it's certainly not for this deck. We'll take the Giant Mammoth. Sorry, Hazaret, you're cool, but we're Golgari. Pick 2, there's a Wicker Folk here. Good little self-mill card. 2-mana 1/3 flyer, and you surveil 2. I need more cheap creatures here still badly, because I forgot to sort the curve out by creature and non-creature spells. We need creature spells, period. But especially cheap creatures. I have so much top end here, and like nothing here, at like 2 and 3 mana, so looks like it's time for a Wicker Folk. Pick 3, 4 mana for a vehicle. Whenever you discard one or more cards, create that many tapped 2/2 zombies. Oh, that's so sick with cycling. But I've only got 3 cycling cards here because I'm Golgari. I'm not like a red deck or a blue deck where all the cycling is in this format. Such a cool card. Oh, we found it. We found Back on Track, though. To reanimate a Brood Wagon or an Archfiend early, I'm taking that. And if we're super lucky, we will catch it on, but that's probably very unlikely. This card seems great. 6-mana 6/6 reach, gain 4 is a huge way to stabilize. And it has cycling attached. If you're mana screwed that game and you're just not going to make it to 6 mana, it still does something. Card seems incredible. Pick 4. The Gravestalker is nice at the top end in these Golgari self-mill decks because it can be a lot cheaper, and you can always cycle it towards your cards like Back on Track, so I like that. I'm probably supposed to take the Lagak as a cheap card, but I don't care at this point. I have a lot of fun, big stuff. Let's go. Full cycling all day. Migrating Ketradon. Make sure I have a million cyclers for Back on Track. This is a great way to stabilize. Once again, I'm definitely supposed to take the 2-mana 2/2 to actually have some early game blockers, but that is just too bad, isn't it? Pick 6, we've got Sideswipe. I don't have a lot of good stuff to sacrifice to this, so I don't think that's particularly good removal in this deck. We could just take the 4-mana 4/4. This is a very mediocre cycler for this strategy, so I don't think we want that. We could take 5-mana removal. 5 mana is a lot, but you gain a little bit of life off this. And again, we can't really sideswipe well in this deck, so I'll take that. Well, let's go. Another Archfiend. Sure. All right, here we go. Now we just take a bunch of filler 2-mana 2/2s. I mean, this is a really good hexproof trick, this defend the rider thing, but I've passed up on so many cheap blockers. I will take my last couple opportunities and actually put a couple in this deck. This is awkward because this ended up being a really bad March of the World Ooze deck, because most of our creatures are pretty big already. We're just waiting till the late game and then playing big creatures. We might be so low on creatures we even play Ticket Tortoise just to trade off. Oh no, another one. Yeah, we might. And we got one of these Defend the Riders. Can use to protect my gigantic threats I'm trying to reanimate. Definitely don't want Silken Strength. We are not nearly low to the ground enough to be a combat trick deck. We don't want Bestow Greatness either, for the same reason. It's just like if we survive to where we hit 5 or 6 mana, we're going to super crush. And if we don't, we're going to do nothing. We're going to get crushed. We might even play Starting Column in here for ramp. I don't think I'm doing that, though. Just exclusively a mana rock, no other value. Summoner's bad in here. We didn't get any vanilla creatures. Vanilla creatures are creatures with no rules text on them, and that's what this card cares about. Maximum Overdrive is also probably actually kind of bad in here because we have such few amounts of cheap creatures to use as combat tricks and stuff. Run Over also not particularly good, but I'm so low on removal, I think I'm still playing it. Yeah, I'll just cut these 5. Definitely still run 17 lands in here. This is a high mana value Golgari beef deck. This is not the kind of Golgari self-mill synergy that I've seen a lot of players playing with because they actually have really good curves. Like there's a 2-mana 2/2 that like mills 2 and puts a counter on it for each creature and artifact in your grave. Like the Golgari decks can still have some scary, pretty fast curve outs. This is not that kind of deck. This is a super top heavy, super slow Golgari brew, but it still looks pretty fun and pretty powerful. So we'll see how it all plays out for us as we head into the gameplay. All right, here we are on the play for game number 1. I've got a curve out here, actually. I have to hit another green source for my 3-drop, but we have Scurryfoot into Beast Rider Vanguard, then Regal Imperiosaur, and then we just exhaust the Scurryfoot turn 4. There we go, we hit the green source. Looks good. Should be a pretty brutal curve out. We are playing against blue-red. That has been my favorite archetype so far. It's a lot of fun. Here's the Imperiosaur. Offer the Vanguard for Sarcophagus trade, and they take the trade. But they did start their engines when they cast the spell. So now they get value off any pings. Oh, God. Okay, that's one of the strongest rares for the cycling archetype, because now once per turn, during their turn, if they cycle just one card, they get a 1/1 Thopter out of that thing. It's also a pretty beefy vehicle in general. They can crew up with the Thopters and other stuff. Yep, cycle the Ironclad, get the 1/1 Thopter. The Archfiend should be really, really nice. But we're still 3 turns away from casting it. It's going to be a very, very late play. It's not going to help us find lethal here soon. And yeah, there's the Transit Mage, which is big enough to crew the Fabricator. They draw into a Hole Drifter, which will trigger it and make another Thopter again next turn. At least I drew kind of a perfect creature on curve here. But I just can't attack with anything smaller than a 4/4 here because that Fabricator can just get crewed on blocks, which is pretty brutal. So they do chump the Imperiosaur. We go ahead and cast the Gravestalkers, and I've got a couple 5/4s on the board. That'll certainly be helpful. Well, never mind. There's Broadside Barrage. That is an S-tier removal spell. 3 mana, it's instant speed, it deals 5 damage, enough to kill almost anything, and it draws a card and discards a card when you play it, which is excellent in the cycling decks because you trigger your cards like Thopter Fabricator, which our opponent's about to do here. And get that 1/1 Thopter. Screw the Fabricator, send in. Alright, they must have some crazy plans on blocks here. Or something that really needs maximum speed. That's such a bad draw here. I almost definitely have to cycle one of these just to guarantee, or not guarantee, but make it more likely that I have the mana for the other one next turn. So I'm just going to cycle one right now. So if I hit anything that costs 4 or less, I can cast it this turn. Ooh, run over. Okay. That's an instant too, isn't it? Yeah. That as an instant means we get to attack all and we have that up against whatever trick they're trying to do here. They're just going to chump? Sure. We're down to 8. So they must have just been working on their max speed for something important. I don't think if they attack with Transit Mage, I still think it's not going to be worth running over that. We try to run over a blocker in their end step after they tap out for something else. Right, because Archfiend's just going to kill everything with 2 or less toughness if we hit the 7th mana. Plus the mage is already going to be tapped. That's not going to be doing any blocking if they attack with it. Play the Hole Drifter. Tapped out here, we love to see that. So, I mean, if we top deck Archfiend mana, that's lethal. I guess it's not lethal because our creatures also get -2/-2. So, crew 3, crew 2. I guess I do run over Transit Mage here. Because then they don't have enough power to crew either of these. So if I top deck another removal spell to clear out the Thopter, they're dead to these 2 creatures. Alright, so any removal is lethal. That isn't removal, it is the Archfiend, which it's a big flyer. But if I play it right now, again, my creatures get smaller and I don't lethal them. So I just attack and force the chump. Put them to 3. I do think a big flyer is a big enough deal to sack the 2/2 on the ground to upgrade it into a 5/5 flyer. That played so awkward for me that we did hit the Archfiend mana. Because then it's like, well, now it doesn't really feel like we removal spelled the mage for much. I guess we could have just cycled it and hoped for immediately more removal, or at least something we can cast without eating our 2/2. Alright, so they cycle Artillerist, get another Thopter, put their speed up to 3. Gilded Goda's here. They still need one more blocker to not die. And that's one more blocker. Alright. Debris Beetle? That drains for 3, doesn't it? Ew! Alright, filthy top deck. We fling our poop at them with the Dung Beetle. And that is 1-0 heading into game 2. Alright, here we are on the play for game number 2. I've got the Wicker Folk to try to surveil towards some mana, and most of my expensive cards I can just cycle if I'm not hitting lands. That'll also allow me to reanimate them if we find that reanimation spell. That'll be really nice. Yeah, ideally Wicker Folk surveils into a green source and we get that turn 3 Imperiosaur again just for the 3 mana 5/4. Well, I don't even need to surveil into the forest. We already found it. What else do you see, Wicker Folk? Swamp, Keep. This deck is super slow. It's just top heavy, incredible late game win conditions. So let's play towards hitting all the mana to cast all those. Outpace Oblivion, what do you do? 5 to up to 1 creature, Planeswalker for 3 mana. and start your engines. Okay, that card is completely absurd. Yeah, that is fantastic removal for this format. I could absolutely cycle one of these and see if I can get another like 2 or 3 mana play. But I think against Rakdos, these should all be way more than explosive enough to just like hardcast these, even if my early game plays out pretty slow here, I recover and get really far ahead by having all this power to cast later. That was such a good draw. Exactly a 5 drop off the top. Thank you, Scurryfoot. Very cool. Risky shortcut. Everybody loses 2 life, but because they're trying to increase their speed, that is a net benefit for them. I'm 2 mana away from blowing up their whole board while playing a 5/5 flyer. Unfortunately, I'm still 2 mana away from that. We find Siphon Fuel. All of the onboard trades and stuff are just already fine for me, so let's just jam the team. Sure, they're also trying to play the long game, it looks like. I mean, we'll see what kind of late game they have, but I can't imagine it'll be particularly great against all this. I mean, we traded 1 Scurryfoot into both their creatures, which is really nice. 1 card worth of value into both of those cards. And Rider Catalyzer. Night Market on white. And just get a pilot here. Interesting. Just crack another land. Okay. I guess I'm Siphon Fueling a 3/1? No, because I mean, if I hit a land, I just Broodwagon it, because there's nothing better to Broodwagon. Oh, shoot. Another 7 drop is the polar opposite of what I want here. Cycle that. Jesus Christ. Yikes. Yeah, that is actually super awkward. Really don't want to cycle a Broodwagon or an Archfiend here. We're on blocks now. Okay, that's our Siphon Fuel target. Down to 13. Their speed's 3. We can get right back on track. Don't mind if I do. Alright, things got a little off kilter, but we are now officially back on track. The order is awkward. The sequence is awkward, that it makes the 1/1 before it -2/2s everybody. But you gotta make some sacrifices. Sacrifices enchantment, it deals 2 to each player who doesn't have max speed, so they also get to just sack and ping me for 2 later. Got 2 creatures in the grave for Earth Rumble to accrue itself. Mythic Rare Gear Hulk has arrived. 5/4 Menace Death Touch. When it enters, put a creature from any graveyard onto their battlefield. Plus the 3/2. If I top deck my land, I can still beat the mythic and rare they just played this turn. But if I miss one more land, that's it, basically. They're at max speed now, so everything I kill gives them a 2/2. Should exile itself no matter what happens to it, right? Beginning of your end step, exile that creature. Oh yeah, because it has a finality counter, so it does exile no matter what, thankfully. Oh. Tap land is rough there. Tap land is certainly rough there. Okay, well, I mean, they're Rakdos, so their kind of combat trick that would save something from a Siphon Fuel would be the one that gives Indestructible, and you still die if you have Indestructible to -6/-6. So I'm going to kill it during their turn, so that I don't have to take damage from the zombie. I can sack Gearhulk in response so I don't gain the 2. But because I'm casting this right now, I won't take the extra ping damage here. And they could always sack the Gearhulk in response if I do it after the Embalm thing comes out anyway. Okay, top deck basic land, Archfiend, GG. Please, I'm begging you. It's Archfiend off the top or bust. If I take this damage, Archfiend kills me because the Ascendant pings me for 4. No, dude! Oh, I'm so frustrated. Am I supposed to be playing like 20 lands in this deck? Maybe I'm supposed to be playing like 20 lands in this deck. Five, 5, and a 3/3. Block, drained for 2. I'm at 5 life, take 3 damage from the other cards. Oh, man. They draw a card from Goblin Surveyor. They pass turn. Oh, sweet Jesus, please. I'm dead to a lightning strike off the top now. Let's not die to top deck removal. That's the top deck removal. Pretty good, I did not attack. Oh, drain them for 3 and be at a healthier life total. Feels really good. Saddle 5. Good lord. If I try to saddle and then attack, they're just going to blow this up before I get the saddle attack off. This one's only crew 2, thankfully. Yeah, I can't afford afford to attack on this board yet. I will definitely be able to attack next turn. Yep, blow up the mammoth makes sense. Land. They're just flooding. Upgrade the Scurryfoot, drop a Vanguard. Start getting swings here. Still 3 blockers up against 2 attackers. Get the kill next turn. Cycle a Mako. That was a terrifying, terrifying game. I was like so confident we were winning the long one because we had such insane 6 drops, but we missed like 3 or 4 of those lands in a row stuck on that 5 mana, and it was like, oh god, we're just gonna die. Absolute nail biter there. If our opponent had some lightning strikes in deck, then we got so lucky they didn't draw them at the opportune time there when we were stuck at that 3 life, but whew. Managed to stabilize in the end because our top end is really, really good at stabilizing with the whole board wipes attached and removal spells attached, or like 2 creatures off the 1 spell with the 5/5 plus 3/3 mammoth. 2-0 here, heading into game 3. And here we are on the draw, sadly, but I've got that Scurryfoot to activate turn 4. I've got a Debris Beetle and a Brood Wagon as the top end. I like this hand a lot. I will keep it. Our deck is really, really slow. That is the biggest issue with it, as we saw last game. So if our opponent does have a great aggressive deck that's really trying to hit max speed early, some kind of Boros or Rakdos kind of nonsense, we could have a big problem here. But we'll see. That's a red source into a 1-mana 1/1 menace with Start Your Engines. Alright, well, rip. GG. That has got to be probably the literal easiest way to get to max speed early. I have not seen another card that is more efficient at working your way up to max speed than a 1-mana card that immediately starts your engines and has menace. So even if your opponent has the blocker, you still get in. That's disgusting. This matchup might be an auto loss. I've got the Archfiend technically if I make it to 7 mana, but I don't think that's going to be a thing here. Now I've got the 2 creatures to double block the menace card. So I can double block the menace card and defend the rider, make a pilot, single block the coordinator. And we were on the draw here too, which means they've got 3 mana they can play around with here if they have their land drop for turn. Also makes it way, way, way harder to block and slow down their max speed. Yep, they do have land 3. They've got Gilded Goda, sure. They're going to get the pilot off the coordinator because that card's insane. And they're just going to pass turn from there. I need as many blockers on board as possible. I'm going to be mana efficient and just get the pilot right now. So if I draw anything else useful to use, I have all the mana I need to do it. But it looks like we're just going to cycle here. Okay. I feel like this game is already over, but I'm technically at 20 life here, so we stick it out. Another Goda. Another pilot for coordinator was 2 mana for a 3/1 and 2 1/1s in Scry 2. My blocks are horrible for a 2/2 right now. The block on the 1/1's fine, I guess, but it was like free from the coordinator. Ay, ay, ay. Might actually just have to exhaust the Scurryfoot next turn instead of playing Debris Beetle. Just for more actual creatures instead of vehicles specifically. They have a 2-mana instant speed removal spell. It's gonna hit me right now or during their turn. I guess I still might as well do it during my turn because I have nothing else to hold up here. And that would play around like a 3-mana or more removal spell from my opponent. Another Gilded Goda. Got a lot of that card. It's another mount for the coordinators. That's a 3rd pilot here. Saddle. Pilot. Saddle. Combat. See if they had the removal here. They did not. We use that before the treasure resolves, so that if they have like a 5-mana removal spell, they can't kill the Scurryfoot first. But I think technically the way it's worded, we would still get the 3/3. Yeah, we'd still get the 3/3 even if they had removal in response. They do have the 5-mana removal, okay. They have max speed now, which means... Oh my god, that's a double striker? Oh. Oh my god. Oh my god. Are we back on track, ladies and gentlemen? Let's set this game back on track, shall we? Oh! Oh my god, Archfiend. Archfiend back on track is the best thing in the universe. They just concede! They insta-scoop! They don't even want to play anymore. That game went from completely unwinnable to completely unlosable real fast, and that is 3-1 for this deck, I believe? Wait, no, do we not have a loss? There's no shot. That's 3-0. Oh my god. Well, we take those. That is 3-0 heading into game number 4. All right, here we are on the play for game number 4. That will be the final game of this draft video. We're nearing that 1 hour of the recording mark. I still got a couple more drafts to record, so this deck has been so sweet so far somehow. I mean, every game we have been on just the verge of getting completely demolished by quicker decks, but the top end is insane, and the back on track combo with our giant cyclers that blow up creatures when they enter the battlefield has saved our butt on multiple occasions. This is a really good curve out for this deck. Surprisingly, our very first game, I think, played very similarly, where we actually just played creature, 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 creature. The curves have been very impressive. I guess having a lot of these exhaust creatures helps a lot. The Scurryfoots have been fantastic. Again, I think we get more stats onto the board first and then Beetle later. We're playing against a green-blue deck this time around. We'll trade a 2/2 for a 2/1 Death Touch. And they have the bounce off for the Mammoth, but that was still a trade in our favor, right? We spent our 1 Scurryfoot card to trade into both their bounce off spell and their Venom Sac Lagac spell. Let's do the same here. If they have instant speed interaction, the exhaust ability, I believe, still resolves. We still get the 3/3 here at least. They can exhaust their Sky Serpent Seeker to get a land. Get 2 lands. Jesus. That card's really good. And make it a 2/2. But it's not going to be a 3/3 on blocks there. It's the Alacrian Jaguar. 4/4 Vigilance, 2/1 Death Touch, sure. Got my 6 mana now, that kind of critical mass for some really nasty stuff. That 4/4 body's really annoying. Okay, well now I have a 5/5 that's way better to have around than the 5/4. This probably just trades into the 4/4 here, but maybe we get rid of a Death Toucher. I mean, I guess anything we trade into is good here. Okay, Flying Death Toucher, that's better than trading into Lagak at least. But there's so much stuff I have to get out of the way to try to get multiple attacks in with the Otark Mammoth. There's the Migrating Ketrodon, excellent way to stabilize. 6/6 reach, gain a bunch of life. Alright, Archfiend's a good draw. We need more mana, but it'll kill Lagak and Scurryfoot, and that's a trade in our favor a little bit. Here's our own Ketrodon. Cycle a Night Market to draw a card. Pothole Mole, just a 2/3, mill a couple lands. Well, mill a couple cards, pick up a land. So it can pick up the Night Market. That's a pretty cute little combo. That's the mana we need for the Archfiend. So if we can get blocks stacking up to where the -2/-2 is relevant, that'll be pretty good. I think I'm just like slamming in with the board. Then because they probably put the 2/3 on the 2/2. Stuff like that. Okay, that was actually really well played around Archfiend if they block like this. Dang. Yeah, I was really hoping they would block a lot differently. We can just Debris Beetle this turn then. Since our 2/2 was going to die whenever we cast the Archfiend anyway, we didn't really like chump attack too bad there. What does Jaguar do when it's saddled? +2/+2? Sure. 6/6 Vigilance Attacker. I don't think we trade into that. I mean, I'm at 28 here. Just take a little bit of damage. Double Archfiend? Alright. I guess that's a thing. It's not super relevant right now. The -2/-2 is not super relevant right now. It's relevant actually if they chump block one of these with the 4/4. That would be a wild play. Ooh, cycle for 4, destroy a 4-mana value artifact and draw a card. That is incredible. That's a really flexible card. You can also just play a 2-mana 3/3 reach. That is a great draft card. Alright, here's a big flyer. They'll never expect the second copy, so this is where our mammoths get to trade up. More pothole moles, more night market cycling, probably. Yep. You know what? Second Archfiend's actually awkward here, because if they chump block one... They chump block one of my elephants with a mold, and the elephant's going to die to the Archfiend trigger. Okay, if they double block, then it plays fine. Yeah, and then we just play an Archfiend. Cool. We have 2 lethal flying threats. Stock Up's really cool. It's like the new Divination. Instead of just 3 mana, draw 2, it's 3 mana, look at the top 5 and draw 2 of your choice. But that'll do it somehow. 4-0 with the mega slow, grindy Golgari deck. Lots of those games really were on that razor's edge of just getting demolished, but the top-end cyclers, the Archfiends, I forgot we had triple, the Archfiends and the Broodwagon, the Mammoth and the Ketradon also, like, pretty much all of these top-end cards in this deck are just so good at stabilizing that you can swap a board state that looks like definitely losing to a game where you're actually pretty stable. That's possible with, like, Ketradon just gaining some life, Broodwagon blowing up their best card and having a juicy, like, gigantic 6/5 blocker up. The Mammoth giving 2 blockers off 1 card. Like, these cards are really good at stabilizing games where it looks like you have no shot of winning. And the Archfiend can just flip those games around like we saw in that Boros matchup there. As well as I think there was another matchup that was very similar. Yeah, the one against Mardu, red, white, black, where we managed to wipe the whole board with that thing. That was pretty incredible. So yeah, these top-end Golgari cards are nothing to scoff at here, where even a really, really slow build of this deck can end up stabilizing and turning things around for the 4-0 run here. Really, really cool stuff. Definitely loved the Scurry Foot. This was constantly trading into 2 cards from our opponent, getting us the 2 blockers off the 1 spell. It's just been so consistently great. Huge, huge fan of this card. I think it's much better than it looks. It's really deceptively small. It's very easy to just pass up and be like, yeah, that's whatever. But it functionally plays like a 5 mana 3/3 plus 2/2, or if you do curve out with it on turn 1, then on turn 4 you get your 3/3 and your 2/2. Like, if you weren't going to do anything else turn 1 anyway, then you get that mana rebate, and for only 4 mana later, you get a 3/3 and a 2/2, which is really nasty. So yeah, this deck was way better than I thought it was going to be, and that makes me very excited because this is a super cool, super fun deck. So super grindy, super slow Golgari stuff looks like might be actually quite viable here. But as exciting as that draft was, we got to see some new decks, see some new archetypes, and get on to the next draft. So that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.